I thank you very much for your time, and let's go ahead and walk through this project. So today we're going to talk about home use testing. I know that that might be a really hot topic right now, as it allows you to still test even when people are under these advanced restriction guidelines. So I have actually set up a test here, and I've set this up. I wanted to go ahead and kill two birds with one stone, to use an American literary language, as my daughter calls it. So we have 4 concepts that we're testing in this test, and you'll see here that I actually added them as samples, right? And I just want to show that so that as we get to the survey, I can show you how this works, okay? So I'm just going to click edit so we can walk through this test that I already set up. And really there are 3 ways to do home use testing, and I'll explain the pros and cons to each and when you may want to use them. Okay, so first you would select online in the location section, and there's 3 types, and really 2 types that you would most of the time use, right? So the first is this email type of test, and what the email test does is the email test is going to send a unique URL to each participant that you either recruit using RedJade or upload into the system, okay? And they will show up in the participant step, and RedJade will email out a unique link to those individuals at the appointed time, okay? And a few things have to be true in order for RedJade to send out the email. The time, the starting time, and the schedule has to be reached. Your test has to be launched, and the person has to have a valid email address in the participants section, okay? The second type of test here is packing slip test, right? And the packing slip test is a little different from the email test. What the packing slip test does is the packing slip actually creates a PDF document when you're done setting up your test. And that PDF document has a couple of things in it that you can use to set up your test. So one, it has a static URL, so that means the URL is in common for all your users. And it also includes a code that corresponds to a row of the design block for each individual, okay? Now, you can use either of these coupled with assisted check-in to pre-assign individuals an ID number if you want to. I've also seen what works really well with packing slips is exporting the design block and using mail merge to create labels that you can then stick on the product with the URL, with the code for the design block row for that individual, as well as things like use this product first, use this product second, etc. Okay, so those are the 2 main ways of doing these types of surveys. You can also use the anonymous link, though the anonymous link is exactly what it says, it's anonymous. So your control over the anonymous link test is significantly diminished in this case. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next step. The next step is the participant step, and in this test, I went ahead and uploaded participants, and I want to show you the file that I uploaded because I think this is important. So the file that I uploaded the person's name, so this is their full name, their email address. Now, if any of you use Gmail as your email provider, like RedJade does, you can actually add these pluses and it will allow you to send multiple emails to your same email address, which is great for practicing, right? But you'll also see I embedded 2 demographics. I embedded gender and age into my demographic set. And this actually allows me to embed demographics with my data. And then when I go to look at my data set, and you'll see this in my data, I can actually look at my data by age or by gender as well. So it allows me to add additional depth to the data that I'm collecting that I get when I run it through analyses, okay? And this is what that file looks like. And you can see here, if I hover over any one of these individuals, you can see, for example, that Steve 1 is 65 plus and male, right? And you can see that for each person. Now you'll also notice that the first 9 people have actually taken this test as well. Now, we recently added a feature, and this is also in the support documentation under the online test section. So I will quickly go and visit RegAid's support site and show you where this help document is so you can easily find it. If you scroll down, there's this online tests, and there is this document called Resend Participant Instructions Email for Online Email Tests. Okay, so under online tests in the support documents. But here, you can send an individual an instruction email, and that will automatically send to that individual. So you'll see, you'll get a little green pop-up here. Or I can send a reminder email to everyone by clicking the 3 dots and click email instructions to all. So that is going to email instructions to everyone who has not completed their entire design block row. Okay, and when you click that send instructions email, RegAid is going to pull, sorry, that's terrible pronunciation, is going to pull the current participant instructions as they exist on the location step. So you can change this if you're doing a reminder, survey closing tomorrow. You can change these instructions and RegAid will pull those instructions that you edited and send out to these individuals. Okay, so it's going to go get that latest set of instructions and send that out either to individuals or to everyone who has not completed their design block through the email instructions to all button. As those of you, there's many people on the phone who have used RegAid for a long time, you'll know that that's a significant improvement over where we were when you had to click on each individual. We also plan on making this feature significantly better in the future. We plan on using the reminders that we have built into recruiting and pulling that section over into the online email-based tests, where you'll be able to schedule automated reminders at specific intervals and have them go out to each individual. Okay, I see a couple of people chatting me, so give me 1 second here. Yes, I can absolutely show how you can import the Excel document. So I'm going to click these 3 dots. I'm going to click this import participants button here. And then I can browse for my file. Now I can go ahead and grab this same file here. It was downloads. And here we go. Okay, so this is my file. Now I'm going to go ahead and match names because I've already uploaded all these people, so I don't want to cause a problem. But it will match everything. It'll tell you what's going to happen here. So we give you a summary of what's going to happen with your file. And then you can click, you have some options and you click next, right? So I didn't want to import over the top. I'm sorry, I didn't want to make any changes to my file, but that's how you would go about importing it. So I hope that answered your question. How many columns can you import per person? I don't think there's a limit, Chris. If there is, send me a message and I will announce it to everybody, but I do not believe there's a limit with the number of data that you can. Okay, so that was I hope that answered your questions. If you have any more. Yep, there is no limit to the number of columns. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next step. So the next step is the schedule. The schedule here controls 2 things. The schedule controls when the survey is active. So if somebody clicks on the link during that active time, the survey will be available, assuming that they have not already completed the survey. Okay. It also controls when that initial email is sent out. So the start time, if you set it in the future and you launch your test, RegAid will send emails to those individuals, the initial email to those individuals when the test has been launched and the start time has been reached, and if you're using check-in, when the individual has been checked in to the test. Okay, so all three of those things must be true. If you're not using check-in, then those two things must be true. You can also use this to control tests that happen, for example, every 2 weeks, right? We have a number of clients who do personal care, right? Shampoo, conditioner, toothbrush, toothpaste, etc., right? Band-Aids, whatever. And you can actually give people products in home, and you can control when the surveys are active by changing these dates. So you can say, I want the people to fill out this survey between 3/17 and 3/21. I don't want them to fill out the next survey until 4/2 to 4/6, right? And you can control access to the survey using this time, coupled with some controls that are available in the questionnaire step, okay? So there are a few different ways to control access to your surveys when you're doing a home use test. And I will show you those. So one, in the edit test instructions, the palette cleanse screen controls how long between samples, only sample surveys, how long between sample surveys before the person can evaluate the next product, right? It is in seconds. So if you want them to evaluate product 1 this week and product 2 next week, you can do that a couple different ways. And you can couple that with the scheduling step that I explained just a second ago. But let's say you're only making your product 1 sample available for 3 days. You can actually, I believe it's about 210,000 seconds is 3 days, give or take. So you can actually control and say, well, the person's, if they filled it out right away, I want them locked out for at least 3 days, because then my surveys are going to no longer be available online. And I don't want them to be able to evaluate product 2 for a whole nother week. So you can use the coupling of the palette cleanse screen with the scheduling to help control access to your surveys over time. That's one way to do it. The other thing we recommend, and I'm going to cut this back to 0 because I'm going to do a practice test here, so nobody wants to watch that count for 3 days. So that the participant end screen as well shows when the person tries to log back in. You might want to set this for 10,000 seconds and say something like, please close your browser. Okay. Now we do plan on adding a redirect after the survey as well. That's something that we're working on. Okay. So you can make these changes here. The other way to do it is you can actually create a questionnaire, and let's just call this a timer questionnaire. And this would be a non-sample questionnaire, and the sample entry mode is skip. And what you can do here is you can easily add a page element and a questionnaire timer and set that for as long as you want. And you can set it to auto advance, and you can set it to auto start. And all this is going to do is automatically sit and start a timer the minute somebody gets to this survey. It's going to start a timer, and that timer can just count in the background, and the person can't advance until that timer's done. So there's multiple ways to control your test and your timing. Now, if anybody has specific questions about your specific test, you can absolutely reach out to support, and one of us will help you with your specific test and what we believe is the best approach towards ensuring that your consumers have an easy time of managing the test, you have an easy time of managing the test, and you have the proper lockouts that you need in order to collect the appropriate data, okay? And I'm not gonna save this. The other thing I wanted to show you while we're on the phone, so I wanted to really quickly show you how you can easily run a concept test in RegAid and get statistical differences between products. So you'll see a couple things. One is I set this survey to skip, right? So I set it to skip. And what I did here, and this is clearly just Latin, is I have 4 different images, one for each sample, right? And if I click, you'll see in the logic that I have set the trigger type to sample, and I have set the condition to include concept A. So this concept is only going to show if the person is evaluating concept A. Remember, concept A is one of the 4 samples that I put into this specific test. And I did that for each product. Here's concept B, concept C, concept D, etc. And then I just asked a simple purchase interest question, right? Now I could have, for example, instead of was available at a reasonable price, I could have used my price variable here that I've set to put in a separate price for each sample and read in that specific price, and still have been able to run my stat test for purchase interest. So each respondent will have, sorry, I'm reading a question here. If they would have finished, they will continue. Yes. So if the person closes their browser and clicks on that link again, they will be taken right to the last page of questions they were on with the last answer they selected. RegJade saves every click. So as long as the person had internet access at that point, which assuming they do, they would be able to click. The other thing I will recommend is if you're doing home use testing, and a lot of people tend to use their phones, I would most likely have the all questions set to vertical, and I would just double check it on your phone to make sure it looks good. Okay, RegJade is responsive, but I would just make sure that it looks good on your phone if it's vertical as well. Okay, so we can click save and close this information here as well. Yes, you can absolutely customize your variables. I will show that really quickly. So in the admin section of RegJade, if you go into settings, so you have to be a company admin to have access to this, but if you go into settings and custom fields, you can add whatever custom fields you want here. You name the variable and then you add it to your sample form, and it becomes a variable that's available for you in any survey at that point. Okay, so you can add as many custom fields as you want. There is no limit. You set it in custom fields, you add the variable. It has to have the variable name here in order to be available, and you needed to add it to your sample form. And you can see I've completely customized my sample form here. It's very different than anybody else's. All right, last step is design block, as you all well know. That's pretty straightforward. And we will go ahead and click submit. So I've already collected some data here. So I'm going to go ahead and open this link in a new tab just so you can see the analyses for this test. And you will see that if I click on view results, this actually allowed me to stat test my concepts here. And so here's my concepts, right? So I'm running a Cochrane's Q across the groups, for example. Now you can see they're all at parity because I only have 9 people. But we do run the Cochrane's Q with Bonferroni over the top as well, okay, to add the lettering. So that allows me to do that. Also, you'll see in my filters, I have the filters that I added through my upload. So if I wanted to go ahead and set ages 35 to 49, I can do that here. And you'll see that RegJade will run my filter, and I had 5 people at 35 to 49. So the question was, can you add the means? Yes, you can add the means. You can't run the stats both ways at the same time. So here, what you can do is you can go ahead and if you change to interval, it will run the means stat test instead. Okay. If you switch back to categorical, it's going to run the Cochrane's Q. All right. So another question here, is it possible in an online survey to see the participants that completed the questionnaire? So no, not today. That is planned. So the question is asking, can you, from the participant screen, see who completed? No, not today, but the advantage here is you can just click email instructions to all, and RegJade knows who has not completed their design block row, and it only sends to those individuals who have not completed their design block row. If you want to send individual emails, I will show you what I have told people before that I think works well. If you click these three dots here, there is this view edit data button, and it takes you into your individual participant data. Everyone in blue is a completed survey here. So if I just take my screen and split it into two here really quickly, right? So if I just take my screen here and split it into two, I can easily look next to each other here, right? Also, the other place that Chris just pointed out to me as well is you can also go to the design block page, and the design block page tells you which surveys have been completed as well. Both of those would work. This is a cool little add-on called Resizer, Tab Resize, that allows you to split your screen into two in one click. And you can see everything gray has been completed. Okay. So that was the training that I wanted to provide today. I am going to unmute everyone. It may get a little loud. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. If you want to ping me later with a question, it is just steve@redjade.net, about as easy as you can get, or you can email support@redjade.net. Any of those will work well. So I'm going to stop the recording really quickly.